3,318. So the record is clear. It's 12 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. And then those life sentences are also consecutive to 3,318 years in the Department of Corrections.
I just signed your death warrant.
You are hereby sentenced to New Jersey State Prison to 2 consecutive life sentences.
This is Larry Nasar, once a world-renowned doctor trusted by USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University. Today he stands in court in Lansing, Michigan, charged with multiple counts of criminal sexual conduct and abuse.
Your words these past several days, your words have had a significant emotional effect on myself and has shaken me to my core. I also recognize that what I am feeling pales in comparison to the pain, trauma, and emotional destruction that all of you are feeling. There are no words that can describe the depth and breadth of how sorry I am for what has occurred. An acceptable apology.
Sir, you need to stay at the microphone. They can't hear you.
An acceptable apology to all of you is impossible to write and convey. I will carry for the rest of my days.
For decades, under the guise of medical treatment, Nasar preyed on young female athletes. From the late 1990s into the 2010s, he systematically abused hundreds of girls and women, robbing them of trust, safety, and innocence. By 2018, after years of mounting accusations, the truth could no longer be ignored. Nasar pleaded guilty to 7 counts of sexual assault, but the number of women who came forward to testify, over 150, showed the staggering scale of his crimes. Early police interviews revealed his chilling defense. He insisted that the actions which had brought him before the police were simply medical methods.
Very in tune to the person's body, okay? And that's what makes me the doctor that I am, okay? And so that's why I'm like, how the heck did I miss any signals?
And more shocking to the police officers interrogating him, Larry Nasar tried to shift grounds, shifting blame onto his victims for not speaking up sooner.
I don't get it. Why didn't she say something if she was feeling violated in any way, shape, and form? There was no communication.
Okay.
And that's why I'm like, what? Am I blind? Am I deaf? Didn't I hear or see anything?
Then he leaned on his own professional reputation, feigning confusion, trying to cloak predation in legitimacy.
I lecture on not only here at Michigan State to the fellows and residents and medical students, but to national organizations, international. And to be able to do this stuff for so long. If you don't have patient confidence and patient trust, you would have been having my here how many times?
Right.
Okay, especially when I'm doing this on 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, okay, with their parents there. But I'm obviously doing a doggone good job explaining things, okay, because what?
But in court, there was no hiding. For 7 days, survivor after survivor stood and delivered searing statements, staring Nasar down, forcing him to confront the lifelong damage he had caused.
You were meant to get caught. You were meant to be locked up for the rest of your life.
Larry is the most dangerous type of abuser. One who is capable of manipulating his victims through coldly calculated grooming methodologies, presenting the most wholesome and caring external persona as a deliberate means to ensure a steady stream of young children to assault.
As I look at you today, I feel nauseous. 20 minutes went by when you stopped, and I thought to myself, it's finally over. But you weren't finished yet. You assaulted me again and again.
I, too, was sexually assaulted by Larry Nasar, multiple times, at multiple appointments. I have never wanted to hate someone in my life, but my hate towards you was uncontrollable. Larry Nasar, I hate you.
One father, broken with rage and grief, asked the judge for 5 minutes alone with Nasar.
I would ask you to, as part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon. Would you do that? Yes or no? Would you give me 1 minute?
denied. He tried to leap across the courtroom at the man who had hurt his daughter. Deputies restrained him before he could reach Nasar.
Stay down. Stay down. I understand. Let me have that son of a bitch. I understand, but stay down. I want that. Stop fighting. Behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. I want that son of a bitch. Put your hands behind your back. I don't. Give me 1 minute with that bastard. Yeah, go ahead. You're good. 1 minute.
Relax, sir.
Relax.
Take it easy, buddy.
Just relax. Okay, now we're gonna kind of let up, okay? You have to let up too, okay? All right, sit up. Get on your side. Sit up. Where is it? 1, 2, 3, out.
Then came Judge Rosemarie Aqualina's turn to speak. Looking directly at the disgraced doctor, she delivered a scathing rebuke.
Which is why we are here for 4 days. It could be 5 or 6. Victims keep coming forward wanting to speak when they hear their sister. Victims. I want to remind you on page 3 of the plea agreement, paragraph 4. I'm going to read it to you so you clearly understand this isn't about me at all. It's about you, the agreement, and mostly the victims, so they can start healing. Paragraph 4, victim impact statements. The defendant agrees to allow all victims or their parent/representative to give victim impact statements at defendant's sentencing hearing. Included shall be the 125 victims who have reported their assaults to Michigan State University Police Department and the other acts victims who have been identified on the people's list. It says included, not limited to. Those are Crime Victims' Rights Act. It allows for the healing.
Finally, the moment everyone in the courtroom had waited for: sentencing.
As much as it was my honor and privilege to hear the sister survivors, it is my honor and privilege to sentence you.
The judge imposed one of the harshest punishments ever given in an American courtroom: 175 years in prison.
Sir, I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I just signed your death warrant.
The judge was right. What Nasar had received was not just a sentence, it was indeed a death warrant. While Nasar had his life altered, his survivors applauded and embraced each other on hearing the sentence. Larry Nasar's 175-year sentence was called a death warrant, ensuring he would never breathe free air again. But how does that compare to a man called the Angel of Death nurse, who was handed not just one life term, but 11 consecutive life sentences for killing his patients? And this is Charles Cullen, charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder and attempted murder in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, crimes that would expose him as one of the most prolific serial killers in American history.
He may have been one of the most prolific serial killers in history, and he might still be taking lives if not for the work of his colleague, a nurse who worked with cops to bring the killer to justice. She spoke with Jim Murray.
For 16 years, Cullen worked as a nurse in hospitals across 2 states. But instead of saving lives, he was secretly ending them. On June 28, 2003, at Somerset Medical Center, Cullen injected Reverend Florian Gall with a fatal dose of digoxin. That was the murder he confessed to first, but it was only the beginning of a horrifying revelation. The investigation revealed a disturbing pattern stretching back to the late 1980s. Hospital after hospital reported suspicious deaths, but none connected the dots. Cullen slipped through the cracks, exploiting weak oversight as he moved from job to job. In court, the prosecution laid it bare. Cullen admitted to killing at least 40 patients, though experts believe the real toll could be in the hundreds. His calm responses to the questions, which were flat, clinical, and emotionless, only deepened the horror.
Did you inject Ms. Stoker with any medication?
Yes.
And what agent did you use to accomplish that intent?
Digoxin.
Families of the victims confronted him directly. Their voices cracked with pain as they demanded answers he refused to give. He sat still, staring, showing no sign of remorse.
One day, without you even knowing it, your life will end. And what legacy will you have left behind, sir? A serial murderer, serial killer. You ruined the lives of your family, your children, and many people in this courtroom. You've bloodied and stained the medical profession.
And then came the sentencing.
You are hereby sentenced to New Jersey State Prison to 2 consecutive life sentences, which, with the application of the No Early Release Act, that is NJSA 2C:43-7.2, mandates a period of 85%, or approximately 127 and a half years of parole ineligibility.
The judge handed down a punishment as staggering as his crimes. 11 consecutive life sentences, no chance of parole, no possibility of release. It was a sentence designed not just to keep Cullen behind bars forever, but to serve as a message. There would be no escape, not in this life. Charles Cullen now spends his days inside New Jersey State Prison, destined to die there.
All he cares about is himself and his own children. He doesn't care what he did to our children.
Charles Cullen sat emotionless as he was sentenced to spend eternity behind prison walls. But Ryan Stone, a carjacker who turned Colorado highways into a war zone, broke down in tears, only to be slammed with 160 years, one of the longest sentences ever given for a chase. So this is Ryan Stone, a man facing more than 11 charges, including attempted manslaughter, vehicular eluding, first-degree assault, and child abuse, for a high-speed rampage that tore across Colorado in 2014. It began in Longmont when Stone jumped into an SUV at a gas station. But this wasn't just a stolen car. There was a 4-year-old boy strapped in the back seat. The theft instantly became a kidnapping, and police launched into pursuit. What followed was a nightmare on wheels. Stone led officers on a 75-mile chase, weaving through traffic, reaching reckless speeds, and endangering countless lives. At one point, he abandoned the SUV, carjacked a gold minivan, and yanked the driver out while his terrified family scrambled to escape. He sped off again, this time heading into oncoming traffic.
My leg was actually shattered in about 20-something places.
Stone plowed into a patrol car, kept going, and soon crashed into another woman's vehicle. He dragged her out and stole her sedan, only to wreck that too in another violent collision. Still not done, he attempted to carjack a third car before bolting on foot. His escape ended against a chain-link fence, where officers finally wrestled him into custody. When he was brought into the courtroom, Stone was no longer the wild fugitive on the run. He sobbed before the judge, claiming he was remorseful, begging for leniency. But the prosecution reminded the court of his history. Ryan Stone had been cycling through the justice system since 2003, and this latest spree wasn't a mistake. It was the inevitable outcome of a man who refused to change.
Stone had 5 previous felonies on his record before this chase took place.
And then came the most damning blow, a recording. While sitting in jail awaiting trial, Stone had a visit from a friend. Their conversation, captured by surveillance, was played in court. His words undercut every tear he had shed, every plea for mercy.
My lawyer told me I made the news in the UK and Australia. If you type in Grand Theft Auto on YouTube, my comes up first.
Stone tried to claim the recording was misinterpreted.
What they didn't play is the ones that do show remorse. What they didn't play is the ones that where you're sitting on the phone and you're crying.
But the damage was done. The jury didn't buy it. The verdict was guilty. Then came sentencing, the moment that would seal his fate. The judge handed down a jaw-dropping 160-year prison sentence. No parole, no second chances. Ryan Stone would spend the rest of his life behind bars. A sentence so severe it made headlines as one of the longest ever imposed for a high-speed chase. The man who once tore across Colorado highways with reckless abandon was now caged forever, his road ending not with another crash, but with a gavel. Ryan Stone's 160 years guaranteed he'd never drive free again. But Antoine Suggs took things further, killing 4 people and receiving a sentence so long it stretched beyond a century. 103 years in prison. So this is Antoine Suggs, a man standing trial for one of the most shocking mass killings in Wisconsin's recent history. He faced 4 counts of first-degree murder after the brutal deaths of Nitosha Flug Presley, Matthew Pettis, Jasmine Sturm, and Loyas Foreman III in 2021. The tragedy unfolded on a summer night in July. Investigators discovered a black SUV abandoned in a cornfield in Sheridan, Wisconsin. Inside the vehicle were 4 lifeless bodies, each one riddled with gunshot wounds. Very quickly, the trail led to Suggs. Detectives also uncovered that he hadn't acted alone. He had help from his father. Darren Osborne had helped him dump the SUV and flee across state lines. Osborne later pleaded guilty to aiding an offender and received a 5-year prison sentence. Suggs, however, was captured days later in Gilbert, Arizona, after surrendering to police and being extradited back to Wisconsin. Inside the courtroom, the spotlight was firmly on Antoine Suggs. He never denied pulling the trigger, but his defense raised eyebrows across the gallery. Suggs claimed the 4 victims were gang members and that he shot them out of self-defense.
My intentions were not to kill, but only to protect my life that was in danger. Family claims that these deceased were angels all around the board. But from my observing of their Snapchat videos, the deceased were actually Crip gang members.
Even as the families of the victims delivered heartbreaking impact statements describing how their lives had been shattered, Suggs sat there, stone-faced, cold, and unmoved.
He took my son. He left my grandchildren without a father. He left his sisters without a brother, and his nieces and nephews without an uncle.
I lost 2 children, in a horrific way. I'm no longer able to tell if I am angry or depressed, or if I just have an indifference to this gaping hole in my life.
Suggs was found guilty on all 4 counts, but what came next made headlines far beyond Wisconsin. The judge announced Suggs would serve 25 years for each murder count, not concurrently, but consecutively. That meant not 25 years, not even 50, but a staggering 103 years and 8 months in prison.
And I recognize that in doing the math, because we here in the court talks about this in terms of months, that's 101 years.
The courtroom sat in silence for a moment, the weight of that number hanging in the air. Suggs continued to insist on his self-defense story, but the judge dismissed it outright, stating plainly that his actions were unprovoked, intentional, and devastating.
Make no mistakes, you caused their deaths. You pulled the triggers. You put them in their graves, and for that reason, you will serve this time.
Outside the courtroom, the father of one victim spoke with reporters, finally feeling a sense of justice after 2 long years.
So I'm very satisfied that it's consecutive.
A sentence that outlives a man, 103 years behind bars, one of the longest prison terms ever imposed in Wisconsin history. Antoine Suggs' 103 years was staggering, but how does that compare to James Holmes, the Aurora theater shooter, who was given 12 life sentences plus over 3,000 additional years? This is James Egan Holmes, the man forever tied to one of the darkest nights in American history. He sat in court facing 24 counts of first-degree murder, 116 counts of attempted murder, possession of explosive devices, and inciting violence, all stemming from the 2012 Aurora, Colorado movie theater massacre. It was during a midnight screening of The Dark Knight Rises that Holmes slipped into the packed theater, armed with an arsenal of weapons. In minutes, he opened fire, leaving 12 people dead and 70 others wounded in a scene of chaos and terror.
What's happening? Oh my God.
During a fight scene in The Dark Knight Rises, Batman exhorts Catwoman to put away her weapon. No killing, he says. No guns. Sadly, in the Century 16 theater last night, life did not imitate that bit of art, and the midnight premiere of that film became a killing ground.
The community was left reeling with families frantically searching hospitals, clinging to hope, while others faced the devastating reality of loss.
Tell me where he is, okay? Find my son. I don't know where he is, okay? Somebody find him and call us. Tell him to call us.
When police searched Holmes's apartment, they uncovered yet another horror, a maze of booby-trapped explosives rigged to kill first responders. Bomb technicians worked for hours to safely dismantle the devices, proving just how far Holmes's planning had gone. Now, before the court, Holmes entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity.
There is not now, nor will there ever be, a time when it is appropriate to execute a seriously mentally ill man.
But prosecutors painted a different picture. They argued that the shooting wasn't random. This attack was meticulously planned for weeks.
So here you have this situation where you've got planning, deliberation, lots and lots of time to put this plan into effect. And on the other side, long history of mental illness will become a big battle of experts here on a trial that will take many, many months.
I just miss my sister. Like, I miss my sister.
Do you think anything will ever help that pain go away?
Can you get me a new sister?
Perhaps the most decisive testimony came from court-appointed psychiatrist William Reed, who acknowledged Holmes's mental illness, but declared him legally sane. Reed testified that Holmes not only understood what he was doing, he knew it was wrong and did it anyway. In the end, the jury found Holmes guilty on all counts. During sentencing deliberations, the death penalty was narrowly avoided because one juror voted against it. But what Holmes received instead was a punishment almost beyond comprehension. The judge sentenced him to 12 consecutive life sentences without parole, one for each life taken, plus 3,118 additional years for the wounded and the attempted murders.
So the record is clear. It's 12 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, and then those life sentences are also consecutive to 3,318 years in the Department of Corrections.
It was and remains one of the longest sentences ever handed down in American court history. As the judge explained, this sentence was designed not for decades, not even centuries, but to guarantee James Holmes will never walk free again.
I am 100% sure that these are just and fair. I want to make it clear that it is the court's intention that the defendant never set foot in free society again.
James Holmes's 3,300 years seemed like the definition of forever. How does that compare to the case of the Waukesha parade killer, who saw the court stack not only 6 life sentences, but another 763 years on top? This is Darrell Brooks Jr., standing trial for one of the most senseless acts of violence ever carried out in public view. He is facing 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide and over 70 additional charges, including reckless endangerment, all stemming from the Waukesha Christmas parade attack of 2021. On November 21st, 2021, the holiday spirit turned into horror. Brooks drove a red Ford Escape SUV straight through parade barricades and into the crowd, plowing into families, performers, and children. He accelerated to nearly 40 miles per hour, striking dozens of people. 6 lives were cut short, and at least 62 others were left wounded, many of them elderly citizens and young children.
We got about 10 to 15 people down in the street. We also got multiple purple patches.
In a matter of seconds, what had been a joyful celebration dissolved into chaos. Parents screamed, children cried, and and people frantically searched for missing loved ones amid the broken instruments, toppled strollers, and blood on the pavement.
Chelsea! With my mama! With your kids!
Turn and I grab her and I pull her out of the way as the car rips past us. I scream, get out of the way, and then I start hearing some shots fired.
Despite a police officer shouting for him to stop, Brooks never slowed down until another officer opened fire at the SUV he was driving.
Oh my God! Oh!
Brooks was arrested shortly after. Inside the courtroom, Brooks became infamous, not just for the crime, but for how he conducted himself during trial. He entered a plea of not guilty, then shocked the court by insisting on representing himself.
Everyone in this room has been taught, pretty much as far back as we can remember, is that there's always two sides to every story.
From that point forward, the trial spiraled into spectacle. Brooks flooded the court with rambling pseudo-legal arguments tied to the sovereign citizen movement.
So we're not going to address subject matter jurisdiction that has yet to be proven for the record.
For the record, I have addressed it.
Well, you have proven it for the record.
And your objections noted for the record.
Proven subject matter jurisdiction for the record. Have you proven it?
He repeatedly clashed with the judge, interrupted testimony, shouted over witnesses, and even moved his table in an attempt to block the jury's view.
What type of statement is that? Your life is not on the line. Mine is. And you think that I think this is funny?
I don't think it's funny whatsoever.
So I think, Your Honor, with all due respect, I think you should show some respect.
So we're going to take a 5-minute break.
An OWI 4th from 2003. Criminal trespass to dwelling from 2006.
Right, I need to take a break. This man right now is having a stare down with me. It's very disrespectful. He pounded his fist. Frankly, it makes me scared.
But while Brooks tried to turn the proceedings into chaos, the prosecution built a timeline too clear to ignore. They presented video after video, eyewitness after eyewitness, proving beyond doubt that his actions were not an accident. They were intentional.
You'll learn about Tamara Durand. Marching with the grannies, this is her first parade. You'll see a diagram of where she was positioned. You'll see video of her getting struck. The medical examiner will tell you that Tamara Durand, cause of death, multiple blunt force traumatic injuries.
On October 26, 2022, the jury delivered their verdict, guilty on all 76 counts.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Darrell E. Brooks, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 3 of the information.
Then came the final blow. The judge sentenced Darrell Brooks Jr. to 6 consecutive life sentences for the murders, with an additional 763 years and 6 months stacked on top, each year representing the lives he shattered.
It is needed, although largely symbolic, given the number of years that I have imposed here today, because frankly, you deserve it.
A sentence so severe it ensures that Darrell Brooks Jr. will never leave prison walls ever again. Darrell Brooks Jr. left court with centuries on his record. But how does that compare to a 16-year-old who was sentenced to 150 years before his life ever really began? This is Scott Kologi, a New Jersey teenager who walked into court facing 4 counts of first-degree murder for a massacre that unfolded inside his own family home on New Year's Eve 2017. Just before midnight, while his family prepared to ring in the new year, Scott armed himself with a semi-automatic rifle. He fired 14 rounds in cold blood, killing his father, his mother, his sister, and a close family friend who was visiting his grandfather that night.
We're still ongoing with this. It's a terribly tragic incident. The 4 individuals that were killed were his the 16-year-old's 2 parents, his sister, and a family friend who lived at the residence. We will be charging this individual with 4 counts of murder and 1 count of possession of a weapon for an unlawful purpose.
At the police station, detectives sat him down with his surviving brother, who acted as his legal guardian, while Scott calmly recounted what he had done.
opens the door. She didn't walk in yet.
So the gun was loaded already?
Yes.
How many times did you shoot her?
I would say 5, 7 times.
When the trial began, prosecutors told the jury this was no accident, no sudden snap of a vulnerable teenager's mind. They argued that the murders were deliberate, calculated acts. But the defense fought back, insisting Scott was mentally ill at the time of the killings.
This tragedy was not born from wickedness. This tragedy was born from sickness. Scott was born with a mental illness.
They pleaded with the court to consider his age, just 16 years old, and asked for a reduced sentence of 30 years. Their appeal fell flat. The jury listened, deliberated, and returned a verdict of guilty on all counts. Then came sentencing day. The courtroom was silent as Superior Court Judge Mark C. Lemieux addressed the young man who had wiped out nearly his entire family. And with a single decision, the judge ensured Scott Kologi's story would end behind bars. He was sentenced to 150 years in prison, one of the harshest punishments allowed under New Jersey law. And because of the state's No Early Release Act, he must serve at least 127 years, 6 months, and 4 days before he could even be considered for parole. For a crime committed at just 16, the sentence guaranteed only one thing: Scott Kologi will never live another day outside of prison walls. Not in this lifetime. Scott Kologi's 150 years guaranteed he'd never see freedom. But how much time is enough for shooting at 27 police officers? This is Lonnie James Pebbley, a Colorado man hauled into court after unleashing one of the most chaotic 4th of July standoffs the state had ever seen. It all began on July 4th, 2012. Police were called about a suspicious man hiding in the brush near a Castle Rock intersection. When officers arrived, they found Pebbley sitting in a parked car. But as they moved in to investigate, he pulled a gun and sped away, leading them straight back to his home. And that's where things erupted into a war zone. Armed with an AK-47, Pebbley fired nearly 70 rounds at police officers and sheriff's deputies. 27 officers were in the line of fire. Miraculously, not a single one was struck.
It happened on Independence Day back in 2012. Lonnie Pebbley was using an AK-47 and a handgun in this standoff.
But Pebbley wasn't finished yet. He slipped out of the house through a hidden passage beneath the floorboards, vanishing before officers could get to him. What followed was a tense 7-hour manhunt across Castle Rock, with SWAT teams deployed. Just before dawn, Pebbley was finally tracked down and arrested. When the charges came down, they were staggering. 46 criminal counts, including 15 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 12 counts of first-degree assault, and 17 counts of reckless endangerment. The trial moved quickly. Pebbley was found guilty on all charges, but it was sentencing day that would carve his name into courtroom history. Judge Paul King didn't mince words. He announced that every sentence would run consecutively, not concurrently. No reductions and no second chances. The total number of years was jaw-dropping, 736 years in prison. A number so astronomical, it all but erased Pebbley's existence outside of a prison cell.
736 years in prison. That is the sentence for the man behind a terror-filled shootout with police.
Outside the courtroom, the assistant district attorney declared that justice had been served. Law enforcement officers across Castle Rock could breathe easier, knowing Pebbley would never again walk the streets.
And these 736 years were a great sentence for the evil that Lonnie Pebbley did on these fine officers and on this community. That was a great sentence.
Lonnie Pebbley's 736 years may sound impossible to top, but George Wagner IV, convicted in the Pike County massacre, was given 8 life sentences plus 121 years, a punishment stacked so high it left no doubt he would die behind bars. This is George Wagner IV, standing trial for his role in one of the most chilling family massacres in modern American history, the Pike County Massacre. On the night of April 21st, 2016, terror unfolded in rural Ohio. 8 members of the Roden family were executed across 4 separate homes. 7 victims, including a 16-year-old boy, were shot dead inside 3 neighboring houses. The 8th, an adult male, was gunned down in his camper just miles away. 3 small children, including 2 infants, were spared, but left to live with the shadows of that night. From the very beginning, investigators suspected the Rodens were betrayed by people they knew and trusted. That suspicion would eventually point to the Wagner family. George Wagner IV, along with his brother Jake, and their parents, Billy and Angela, were all indicted for the killings. In court, prosecutors portrayed George not as an innocent bystander, but as a willing participant in the executions.
And murdered 8 people who did not deserve to die.
And what sealed his fate wasn't fingerprints or DNA. It was betrayal from within. His own family turned on him. Both his brother Jake and his mother Angela took the stand, testifying against George in a move that stunned the courtroom.
Brother faces brother this week in the Pike County massacre trial of George Wagner IV in Ohio. Jake Wagner is the state's star witness, recalling in chilling detail how he and his family planned and carried out the murders of 8 members of the Roden family and Hannah Gilley. Welcome back. We head now to Ohio, where jurors hear from the state's second key witness in the Pike County massacre trial of George Wagner IV, as the defendant's own mother takes the stand.
The jury didn't waver. They returned a verdict, guilty, on 8 counts of aggravated murder and 14 additional charges. Then came the victim impact statements. Grieving family members and loved ones stood before George, their words slicing through the courtroom with raw pain. They reminded him of the lives erased, of futures stolen, and of children who would never again hug their parents.
I hope to have no deal with dealing with the child again, and I pray to God that your son learns what kind of a monster you really are and never wants anything to do with you.
Lastly, Sophia must grow up living with the fact that not only was her family murdered, but they were murdered supposedly because of her, and that it was her father and his family who had done it.
Finally, it was the judge's turn, and the sentence was nothing short of devastating. George Wagner IV was handed 8 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole.
The court hereby sentences you to serve a mandatory term of life imprisonment without parole.
And as if that wasn't final enough, the judge stacked on an additional 121 years for the remaining charges. A punishment so severe it left no doubt George would never again breathe free air. George Wagner IV's sentence made history in Ohio. But what happens when a 17-year-old Raymond Childs III wipes out nearly his entire family? The answer came in one of the harshest punishments ever handed to a teenager, 360 years in prison. This is Raymond Childs III, who's charged with 6 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and 1 count of carrying a handgun without a license in Indianapolis, Indiana. It started like a typical January weekend in 2021, but in those early morning hours, something went terribly, terribly wrong inside the Childs family home. On January 24th, 2021, then 17-year-old Raymond Childs III murdered 6 members of his family, including his pregnant brother's girlfriend, at their home in Indianapolis. The massacre began with an argument over a simple curfew violation and ended with an entire family nearly wiped out. With police investigating the crime, physical evidence began to mount, including a firearm magazine clip found in his girlfriend's car, a crucial link to the murder weapon, and soon the investigation quickly focused on Raymond. But Raymond wasn't done trying to cover his tracks. He attempted to create an alibi, telling his girlfriend he'd been kicked out of the house and later acting shocked when he learned about the shooting at his family home. The police recovered the murder weapon, a Mini Draco 7.62 39mm semi-automatic firearm. Ballistics matched the weapon to the crime scene, further sealing Raymond's fate. As the trial progressed, the evidence piled up. The defense tried to argue that there was no physical evidence tying Raymond to the murders.
You'll also see no physical evidence tying Raymond Childs III to those weapons. No fingerprints, no DNA.
The prosecutor quickly countered with overwhelming evidence. Xavier's testimony, The recovered weapon, phone records, and the magazine clip all pointed to Raymond.
He shot his brother once in the back of the head as he was watching television. Next to Elijah in bed was Elijah's girlfriend, Kiara Hawkins. The defendant shot her once through her right ear.
The survivor's testimony was heartbreaking and critical to the case. Police had found a severely hurt but still alive 15-year-old Xavier, the brother of the perpetrator, who described the events of that night in clear terms. He described how the violence began. He also described how he managed to escape, stumbling into the night, wounded but alive. He made it to a neighbor's house and immediately told them to contact the police. The trial itself was marked by tension and raw emotion.
I cannot comprehend the darkness in your heart at that time that led you to commit such an unfortunate act on January 24th. What I do know is that our lives changed forever on this date and you.
But one member of the family could not hold it in. They confronted Raymond, and this outburst, however, led to a mistrial. But the second trial resulted in a swift conviction just 5 days after the beginning of the proceedings. At his sentencing, Raymond continued to maintain his innocence.
I'm not no killer, I'm not no murderer, I'm not no bad person. Just as I sit here 4 years ago, I'm innocent. It's not a day that goes by where I don't think about them or wish that they was here. Even on my bad days, I tell myself that they're still here.
The judge, however, had a different perspective on what happened that day.
The judge called the murders calculated, cunning, and cold-blooded, sending Childs to prison for the rest of his life.
He was sentenced to 360 years in prison in total.
So the 360-year prison sentence breaks down like this. 55 years for each of the 6 people murdered, including the unborn baby, and 30 years for the attempted murder of Raymond Childs' 15-year-old brother.
Outside the courtroom, the prosecution talked to the press about the case.
The evidence in this case could fairly be characterized as overwhelming. There was cell phone evidence, he was caught with the murder weapon, and most compellingly, his own brother identified him in open court, and it would have been nice if he had expressed some remorse about what happened.